Hey everyone, welcome to the first and what I hope is many sessions, in between sessions of the Cyber Mettle podcast, a little segment we're going to start calling, unless you give us a better name, Cert Corner. Anyone that knows me in this field knows that Omar likes to take certs. It's kind of a running gag at the Omar Sangarima household. Might have gone overboard a little bit up front, at least. I make no bones about part of what I think makes me a pretty okay risk manager is that weaponized anxiety. Part of that might get out of hand with the constant, let's get after certs, let's keep brushing up on skills, have to keep getting after it. I'll also cop to the dopamine hit that comes with getting a cert when it's accompanied by a corresponding, oh no, I'm sad that it's done. It took its toll a little bit. So in a better place mentally to take these at a decent clip, but not have it kibosh a weekend, for example. So recently took a stab at Shared Assessments Certified Third-Party Risk Assessor, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan of what Shared Assessments is out there doing. I think that in the third-party risk space, there's few other entities that are trying to be as systematized with both their approach to things as well as what they offer on the certification side. I want to say about last year sometime, or inside 25, I believe I took the Certified Third-Party Risk Practitioner, which was a little bit broader. I think it's aimed at folks that are running that type of function. But I said, if I'm going to have anyone do these assessments for me or be exposed to folks that are doing these types of assessments, I wanted to see what their day-to-day was going to be like, what the knowledge base that they were going to be assumed to have. So took a stab at the CTPRA and thankfully passed. Now, that's probably the first thing I'll dive into, that passing the test is not going to automatically say, hey, listen, you get the badge, you're good, awesome. The way that Shared Assessments does it, and this is a little bit different, I think, from, say, the way PMI approaches it, or I think CompTIA did, at least when I was heavy in that lane, and a couple others, ISC squared also, I think, takes a little time after to verify your credentials and then go for it. PMI, I know, does it up front, but here you can apply, you can sit for the exam, take it, pass it, and then you have to, as part of the application process after, passing the exam is almost the first step. So you need to then verify. I believe it's about 5 years of assessment experience or risk management experience. They do that pretty simply through anybody that you send them to. So obviously, threw my boss under the bus there a second to verify that, yes, indeed, I've been doing risk management and assessment work internally at the 9 to 5. So there they say it could take about 2 to 3 weeks to be official with the certification. Then you'd get the badge. I think they do it through Credly, if I remember correctly. The whole 9 yards. You can announce. I posted on the LinkedIn that I passed the test, at least, because I was very excited to have done so, because personally it was very windy and rainy when I was taking it. So I lost power midway through. That's a funny one here. And I was talking to my wife, and I've done enough of these where that is not the first time that's happened. So that should go to tell you where for a little while there I was going cert crazy. But thankfully, the Proctor 360 was the format that Shared Assessments used. They were very nice with, hey, just show us your area, give us another video of your desk and show us that there's not somebody hiding in the corner feeding you answers, whispering creepily. Although if there were, A, it'd be very upsetting for me, and B, it would come up on the proctor. They listen in. You're under video surveillance the entire time you're taking the test. So that would be hard to pull off, I'd imagine. But the ingenuity of cheaters never fails to impress me, or at least catch my eye. So probably been attempted. Don't think it's too easy to do, though. So that was fun. But so back to the knowledge here. CTPRA, more the assessment. Obviously, you're going to be dipping into exactly what your what you're assessing. So the CTPRP, the practitioner, is more the architect role, more the let's set up the environment within which to be doing these assessments, tie it back to the business. The PRA, the assessor, is going to be going and running and taking a look at controls. So big domains in this exam. The first and foremost, obviously, shared assessments is famous for this, and rightfully so. This is something that they do that I get behind, might be looking at potentially implementing down the road, is the SIG, the Standard Information Gathering Questionnaire. I know that there's a movement that I'm also very behind, where questionnaires or point in time self-assessment type things for validating vendor partnerships is maybe going away. I don't know how it can fully. I think that for a time, and at least for maybe the immediate future, so I'd say easily like the next 5 to 10, you're still going to have places where a self-assessment questionnaire is appropriate. You send this out to the vendor that you're trying to get a bead on. They fill it out, they self-attest. Based on the answers, you can categorize and find out or discern where you might need to do a deeper dive, where you might need some more assurances, or where you might need some more documents or artifacts to boost maybe something you saw on there that you might not have liked as the assessing party. But first and foremost, obviously, it's a shared assessments environment, so they're going to be hot and heavy on the SIG, which is never a bad thing. In this space, to be familiar with it, to understand exactly what you're going to see, what you're going to ask, how it's going to be applied, when it's appropriate, when it's not. That's very much a bunch of the stuff that they're going to ask you on this exam. I also want to take a second and say, I liked that this exam, it had a few places where I think straight up memorization carried me through a couple places. But what I loved is that a lot of the questions were a little deeper. And so you had to take a step back, read exactly what they were asking you, and then give it a good think in terms of how it would apply. I will say that unlike some of those that I took early in my career, which were, I want to get these in order to get a job or to show that I belong in the field, trying to break in. Shout out to the Sec Plus. I remember you fondly. I'll never forget you for the doors you opened up back then, 10, 11 years ago, 11 to 12 years ago now. But this is an exam I don't think you can really fake the funk. And what I mean by that is a lot of the places where I feel that I did the strongest were just I was remembering actual day to day at the job. So this is one of those where the experience component, even though like many other testing certification bodies in the cyberspace or the privacy space let you shave off a year, I believe you can take off a year with, I think, having a prior, certain types of prior certifications. So like in the CISA realm type of thing. And also I think you can shave off another year if I remember correctly. This is bad. I just did the application. I should remember this. It was only 2 days ago, but lots happened since then. It is the holiday season. Everything's a little nutty, but you can take off a year by having certain types of certifications, as well as you can take off another year by having a master's degree, I believe, in the field, a cyber relevant master's degree. So even then, say you take those off and you're shooting for it with 3 years of experience, those 3 years of experience are going to serve you very well when tackling some of the questions and some of the more scenario-based queries on this exam. Very much remembering not just the course that I took to prepare, and that's another difference. The practitioner, it's a self-study course. It's kind of like a recorded, you go through a few modules. Very meaty. I do remember enjoying that for the CTPRP. Shout out to Shared Assessments just overall for great preparatory resources. But this one, the CTPRA, there was no compromise. You had to take a live course. It's included in the price of the exam, which I'll get into a little bit later in this talk because it is a little pricey. And we'll talk about value, worth it, not worth it, etc. But also want to take a second, shout out Nasser Fatah. Excellent. If you have a chance, I can say this, just the sense I got from the wealth of knowledge that Nasser had. Amazing. Just a great part of my preparation. I felt super solid. I took the 2 days, listened intently, blocked all other things that were going on, and just dialed in. He was phenomenal to prepare. I'm sure, judging from that, I haven't worked with or sat with, obviously, any of the other prep course instructors, but to me, I think sitting with Nasser showed me that shared assessments comes to play in this arena. Of course, this is their thing. The level of quality for the instruction is hands down. The materials they give you not only prepare you for the exam, but definitely help in your general approach to assessing third parties. It's in the name, so you would figure that'd be good. So you're going to go through the SIG a ton. The next thing that's going to be a big realm of focus is your standardized control assessment. This is essentially when maybe the SIG didn't showed you a couple places where you were feeling less than warm and fuzzy from what the third party said. Maybe potentially the relationship that you're proposing to have with said third party is super vital. Maybe you have requirements with the folks that you do business with that you need to perform on sites for certain tiers of vendors. On-site/virtual, that can get a little murky, but the standardized control assessment is the how in terms of what you're going to be actually doing, that process to validate evidence, moving beyond just trusting those self-assessments and then going into verification. I feel like that's the meat and potatoes of this position. The folks that you would expect to bring this as validation of being good assessors, they would take this exam. It's right there. You're looking at the controls, you're looking at the evidence, you're interviewing certain folks depending on, again, the potential relationship that you're going to have, how serious it's going to be, what type of risks and exposures there that are going to need to be taken into consideration when doing this. The assessment and the control, the SCA, the standardized control assessment, that's going to be bread and butter. So it makes perfect sense, in my opinion, that it was such a big part of the exam. And again, relied a lot, of course, excellent prep materials. Some of the best prep materials that I've seen make sense that they're mandatory, makes sense that they provide them, of course, because you have to understand, I think it's no secret. The more folks take this, the more folks are, hey, I'm fans of SIG, I'm fans of shared assessments approach to handling third-party relationships on a continuous basis. The more that adoption obviously then fuels more business on the shared assessments and SIG side and the use of shared assessments as your third-party risk handling methodology. Just goes hand in hand. So I shout that out only because I've seen other folks or other schemas, other companies, won't name names at this point, reach out if you want some inside knowledge there. But I've seen other certification bodies slash then consultancy groups, essentially service providers, which is kind of where I would peg shared assessment sits. I've seen others not take that as seriously. The credentialing is not as robust. The preparation materials are not as serious. And I think that's to the detriment of the whole schema. So if you're going to put out quality certifications in order to then say what we offer as a service, the whole thing that we do with the questionnaires and the standardized control assessments and the continuous monitoring and the repo of how to handle your relationships on an enterprise scale, it goes hand in hand. If the prep materials and the cert are low quality, it really starts to cast a little bit of doubt onto how good then the service end of the proposal is. But here, rest assured, shared assessments came to play. It's all top notch. It's all very professional. The materials are very up to date. I saw a couple of case studies or allusions to certain instances or situations that were from this year, last year, which always is reassuring. There's been some certs that I've looked at where I feel that they would be beneficial to where I am now in my career, but I look and I can't find either prep materials or even official or unofficial prep materials, either way, a third party or first party prep stuff that is within the last 5-10 years. To me, that tells me, hey, the cert's not like that important to who's delivering it, or there's just not enough appetite. I get it. It's a business. You don't want to continuously update something that 6 people are taking. even if it's hard, even if some of that then would lead to, hey, only 10 people in the world have XYZ cert. That's kind of where I'd come from. But I've seen it go the other way here with shared assessments. It's just top-notch stuff. And really, I felt like this was a very good cert for me to say I took it. It validates that I kind of know slightly a little bit of what I'm doing in this particular space. So it hit that sweet spot between breadth and depth. So again, shout out to Shared Assessments. And by the way, this might sound like a paid endorsement. It truly isn't. I definitely paid to take the exam, and I'm glad I did. Very, very good material and an enjoyable process overall, even losing power midway through, which definitely was a bowel shaking moment, I'll say. A third area is again, I kind of mentioned it, but I want to foot stomp it, shout it out, double click on it, however you want to say it. You have your standard information gathering section, questions supporting that in the process. And when I say these three main buckets, it's end to end on those subjects. So for SIG, it might be how do you deliver one? How do you interpret what you get? How do you determine who gets what level of SIG? What's more appropriate, etc. So that is not just straight up questions on the questionnaire. It's potentially also questions on how you view the nature of third-party risk or vendor relationships as they pertain to increasing risk, not increasing risk, et cetera, for your enterprise, for the folks that you're doing all this work on behalf of. Standardized control assessment, same thing. It's going to show you the how. It's going to tell you the when. It's going to probably ask you questions on nuances between, a couple of different, like, well, would you go heavy here? Why would you? What would tell you to, et cetera. So it really teases out understanding not just, hey, this is what a standardized control assessment is, because on its face, that's a pretty easy thing. It's just a specific, repeatable format on how to assess controls that you're looking at for the third party that you're examining at the time. But the questions go a little bit deeper there. And to its credit, I've seen other certifications that seemingly go deep, but it's almost just to make the test harder. It doesn't, the complexity of the questions don't make sense in terms of what are they trying to verify here that I can do, that I'm going to use this cert to show that I'm good at XYZ. I hope that made sense. But it just sometimes you have question sets or folks write certain questions and they're like hard to parse, even as a native English speaker. A lot of double negatives and just a lot of almost, I call those just window dressing to make it seem harder, but deep down, it's not showing any more mastery of the subject that you're testing on than a simpler worded question would. And it just definitely I've seen questions that just give me deeper lines on my forehead, but then at the end, it's like, what are they even trying to ask me? What are they trying to prove that I know or don't know and should shore up as a result of maybe getting it wrong? The third piece here is, before I go into the straight up logistics, the third piece was risks tiering, which it's part and parcel with, I hope at this point, if you have 3 years, if you have 5 years in this nature around the risk management game, risk tiering should be second nature. It's how you scope. It's how you don't boil the ocean. It's how you don't try to swallow the ocean. You don't try to drink the sea. Shout out to the Glitch Mob, one of my favorite albums of all time. I love anytime I can drop that in. But risk tiering, of course, is not just a point in time exercise. It's also a type of thing that you need to verify and show the logic behind why you're tiering things, the logistics even behind tiering. I want to say that I was pleasantly reminded, this is something that obviously I've ingrained over years in the industry, but it was nice that part of the materials were straight up, hey, you probably shouldn't have more mid tiers than highs. Or maybe you should have more mid tiers than highs. Sorry, I said that wrong. But you just shouldn't have more highs than everything else. It's just there should be some method to the madness of why you're tiering things the way you are. And then that's what this exam is going to test you on. It's going to show the math, show your work, understand why you're tiering things. Don't be tiering things arbitrarily, because that also then prepares you to defend it and explain your thinking to anyone in the business that is going, well, hold on, why is that a high? Why is that a medium? Why is this is that? I have controls here. Wait a second. No, you do, but it's not, doesn't negate doesn't bring down that risk to a residual level that the company's comfortable with in this particular instance. Sorry, that's just show business. Being able to have that discussion, obviously amicably, you're not going to be contentious, hopefully, with either the third party or your internal parties that are hoping you get the third party onboarded into your network, your enterprise network environment. But the risk tiering is a big chunk of what you should know in your day-to-day. And again, I love that there's a lot of alignment with what you should know day-to-day as a third-party risk assessor and what you're getting tested on in this offering from Shared Assessments. Very big parallels. I truly didn't see too many gaps, which I'm making a point on doing some exposition on because that's not always the case. So now down to the logistics of the actual exam. You get 3 hours for 120 questions. This is absolutely more than enough time. Again, I would say with 2 caveats. Obviously, if you're taking the exam in your native language, right? So for me, it was English. That's a thing. Good, great. Pardon. Also, if you're, again, not just remembering the prep material, although I will say that as with any exam, any certification endeavor, sometimes how you do a thing that's worked for you and you have that professional knowledge might not be exactly how this particular exam or hierarchical body that's administering the exam wants you to think of things, or it doesn't gel with its own schema on how it wants you to conduct an assessment in this particular case. There might be some of that, but overall, if you're straight up just remembering your day-to-day or how you've seen it done or how you've worked with folks who do it very intimately to have legitimate work experience sufficient to then apply after you pass the exam, then truly you're going to do fine. This is not something where even with all that knowledge, the exam is so intricate and tricky and trick questiony that, again, that artificial window dressing of, I call it like a test puts on airs. Like some exams are written in such a way as to just be almost pedantically difficult versus, hey, this is just hard subject matter, so we have to engage with it on its level. There's a time and place for that, and those are fun to pass as well, and they give you the warm and fuzzy when you do, because you know you climbed a pretty decent intellectual mountain in the niche that you're tested on. But this exam didn't put on that sort of pretense. It asks you things that you're going to need to know, or you should know, if you're doing the job, if you have been doing the job, and if you want to then use this as that badge, that rubber stamp on that experience, showing that you're able to do this in a standardized, industry recognized sort of way. So love that. It's definitely, again, I want to stress more about remembering what you know and do day to day versus straight up memorizing the material. There might be a couple things, again, where it's not exactly like, that's not how I would do it, but this is what the prep material is showing me. Go with the prep material. That's just test taking 101, right? You can eat it, swallow it down, spit it out on the exam if it comes up as a particular question, and then go back to how you're doing what you're doing because it's been effective for your environment. Great. But if you're taking the test, you want to pass the test. I'm just shouting that out there. This was feel in terms of the value. And so we went through the meat of what you're going to do, how you prepare, what you have to get ready for. The value, I will say, I'm not 1,000% that I would self-pay for this. I hate, even as much as good of an exam as it was and how satisfied I felt coming out of it and going, yeah, I beat it. It wasn't, I read a lot of those books on flow state. So it really approached or got near where difficulty of the endeavor was almost right at the level of my knowledge in the area, maybe not quite pushing me out of that comfort zone enough to maybe start hitting flow state. Although I will say, once the power went out and it came back, I didn't know if the power was going to keep flickering because we had terrible weather. So I just bombed through the rest of, I think I was at like question 80. And I said, you know what? Kick the tires and light the fires. We gotta knock out the approximately 40 that are left. Let's go. Because I didn't want to have to then. The proctors were nice anyway. I didn't want to push my luck too much. So thankfully, the power held out. So, but I I got on my horse after that, got on my bicycle, however you want to say it. But the value, this is straight away, I think, for non-members, and membership is a little pricey anyway, at least on the individual level. I'm not sure about the enterprise level. It didn't go that route, but it's $1,400, like $1,495. So it's about $1,500 if you're not a member. That is a little steep. It's definitely at the higher end of, I think, what I've ever paid for an exam. I think I don't want it to sound as though I don't think it's worth the $1,500. Just don't. Again, I think the knowledge that I'm bringing back, I think, is going to help my organization. So I think it's a worthwhile investment there. But this would be something that if I was absolutely just coming straight out of pocket for, I would need to know that it's going to get me a promotion. It's going to get me a raise, or this is something that I need in order to get that third-party risk assessment job that I'm fiending for. I haven't, to that end, I will say, on a lot of job specs, and granted, I've just started really reading third-party risk postings and positions to see what sort of certs they're asking for in that arena. But I haven't seen too many to straight up shout out either the CTPRP, the practitioner one, or the CTPRA, the assessment one. I've seen a couple, but usually then they're a shop or a place that absolutely goes tip to tail shared assessments methodology. So they're doing the SIG, they're doing the standardized control assessment, they're doing the risk tiering, maybe they're straight up using the platform that shared assessments offers, etc. If you're going into that sort of shop, of course, then you might very well need to pass one of these exams in order to work in that place. I will say it is a little pricey. That's why I think I didn't come to it until this point in my career. Usually my cutoff for, like, I'm even considering it, was about $1,000. And again, it would have to be tied to the business need. In this case, it is. I'm going to be, I think, diving in to third-party risk assessment whole hog soon. So I felt that this was a good step to make sure that I had the bona fides to brush up on the specific methodology, and to, again, I like to lead from a place of, I'm not asking anyone to do stuff that I can't do myself. So I wanted to make sure that I had the chops before starting to delegate and move around and point people in certain directions. So overall, honestly, this is going to sound nerdy, and maybe this gives away what I started talking about at the beginning of this one, where I had a bit of a problem with search for a while there, but an enjoyable experience. I can't say enough about the actual prep material, that the prep course, the live prep course that Shared Assessment mandates here. My personal opinion, if you can get it with Nasser, why the heck not? Great person, delivered the material well, had a lot of insights and color commentary, I like to say, where it's not just he's reading off the slides and this is what you need to get through in order for this to be an accredited course. I'm sure there was some of that where, hey, here's the notes you have to hit, but you could tell he's been in this game for that long. And again, it's reassuring when the testing body mandates this type of preparation, but then they make sure that it's at that high level. That started to give me a warm and fuzzy right from the jump. The proctoring service, I think Proctor 360 Proctor 360. Very great, seamless. That was, nothing crazy. I didn't get asked, like, what's that door? It's the door to the room, homie. I only bring that up because I've been asked that before. What's that door behind you? It's the closet. There's nobody in there telling me stuff. It was rigorous enough to make sure I wasn't pulling any funny business, but not, again, artificially rigorous in order to just make the onboarding to take the test process more stressful than the darn test itself. I've been in those situations, and maybe I get into them on other episodes of Cert Corner. But that's it. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover there. If you have any specific questions on this exam or the CTPRP, which I might do a breakdown of down the road, I just have to go back and remember exactly specifics on that. This one's the top of mind. Took it 2 days ago. Please reach out. Hit me in the comments. Hit me with a DM. Ask me any specific questions, or, hey, should I take it? This is what I'm going for. I love talking about this. Anyone who knows me or knows me in the field or knows me at my place of work understands that this is one of my, I could talk about this and jiu-jitsu and MMA pretty much forever, and cyber, of course. Reach out, let me know if there are any other specific exams that you want me to dive into. Maybe if they're specifically in the cyberspace, chances are I may have taken them. If not, I'm more than happy if I get enough of an upswell. I'm more than happy to deep dive and take a look, maybe even take it just to kind of, walk you through the process. That'd be intriguing. Although my family might go, hey, listen, you're just looking for excuses to take more certs, but I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. But for now, this is the first of, I hope, many episodes of Cert Corner, brought to you by Cyber Mettle. And as always, keep it Cyber Mettle. Take care.